I'd like to call this public hearing to order.
No, regular
This
meeting.
is executive session.
No, just you're starting a regular meeting and then we go.
Oh, okay, I'd like to call this regular meeting of June 26th to order. Can I get roll call, please?
Mrs. Buckley?
Here.
Mr. Cootery? Is absent. Ms. Lanasi?
Present.
Ms. White? Absent. Ms. Roscoe?
Here.
President Frager?
Present.
And Mr. Minkevich is also present.
Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Roscoe, supported by Mrs. Buckley. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The next item on the agenda would be to go into executive session for the Student Appeal 2004033. Can I get a roll call, please? Or can I get a motion,
I'll make a motion
please?
that we go into executive session for the hearing.
I'll support that.
Motion by Mrs. Lanasi, supported by Mr. Minkevich. Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Or roll call at this
Now
point.
you got it, yeah.
Mrs. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Lanasi?
Yes.
Ms. Roscoe?
Yes.
President Frager?
Yes.
And Mr. Minkevich also votes yes.
Okay, can we get a motion to reconvene?
I motion that we reconvene back into regular session.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Buckley, supported by Mrs. Lanasi. Are there any questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Buckley?
Yes.
Ms. Lanasi?
Yes.
Ms. Roscoe?
Yes.
President Frager?
Yes.
Mr. Minkevich votes yes.
And you're reconvening into a public hearing for the budget, is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Sherry. Oh, there she is.
Okay, it's on. Good evening, I'm Sherry Papazoglu, the Director of Business and Operations, and I'm going to give you a short presentation of what to expect next year for the budget. Okay, first of all, I want to share with you some of the revenue assumptions that I made in building this budget. The first one is that I'm basing this budget on stable enrollment for September 2006. And when I say that, I mean the count in September. And with that, our blended count, we expect that to be 4,299.92 FTEs, not students, FTEs. That we will receive an increase in the foundation allowance per pupil of $230, increasing our current foundation allowance of $8,548 to $8,778 per student, or per FTE. Just a note that usually in any given year, we have taxes receivable greater than $1 million booked in our audit, and that I'm expecting that our grant awards will remain stable for next year. Getting into the numbers, I'm budgeting that our revenue will be $42,988,529. That includes 38.25% of that comes from local sources: tax revenue, rental of our facilities, interest income, and summer school. 52.76% of that comes from state sources, specifically state aid, our per pupil funding. 8.64% of that figure comes from federal sources, which are our grants, Reading First, all the title grants, and the CSR. And then a small percentage comes from other sources. And just a bit more information, just to remind you that we did pass a resolution for local taxes that we would levy 17.7060 mills on all of our operating non-homestead property, and that we would levy 8.9900 mills on our operating homestead, which is our hold harmless millage. Once again, I'm reminding you that we do have taxes receivable at any given time, at least $1 million. And one of the other things I wanted to mention is that recently, because I'm new, I've seen a lot of appeals and corrections to our tax base. For example, I recently received an invoice from Wayne County for $1,193,000. And that was probably an appeal on a large piece of parcel here in the community that we were paid on, and now we have to refund because the appeal obviously did not turn out in our favor. Another comment that I wanted to make was, in the past, you had a property located on the airport that you were not receiving the tax income from. It was supposed to be built in the equation, and we never got it. What's happening now is that is in the appeal stage, and we have to play a sit and wait game, because until the appeal actually goes through, the county will not contact the state of Michigan, per the Department of Education, to let them know we will not collect on that tax so that they can recalculate their foundation allowance to provide us back the funds. Everybody with me on that one? If there's a correction
Okay, go
in the
back.
tax base,
Yeah, go back. Do that again.
sure. If there is something on the tax roll and there's an appeal for it, and it ends up being not in our favor, what happens is that the county must go back to the state and notify them that we are not collecting on that tax revenue, and in turn, they increase our foundation allowance. We get that portion back from them.
Okay.
But it's a timing issue, and I can't tell you right now when that appeal is going to be complete. Like I said, we kind of sit and we wait.
So Sherry, do we have to pay that million up front?
Yes, we do.
When
What's happened is, over the course of the year, the county has provided us that money. Usually, they pay us any delinquent type of tax, and we hold on to it until the appeal happens, and then we're
when does it have to be paid?
Well, it has to be paid on June 30th, but considering that we did not know this when we took out our last cash flow, I made a call into the county to notify them that there is no way we can make that payment until sometime after August 23rd. So I'm waiting to hear back from them.
They haven't got, okay.
They have not gotten back with me.
Because I was going to ask, can we afford to pay it?
Not at this point, but I did include it, and tonight there's a resolution for a loan. The figure has been included in that number.
Okay.
Okay, just a couple equations that I wanted to share with you. The blended count, as a reminder, it's 25% of our February count and 75% of our September count. Once again, from the Department of Education, we're going to get $8,778 per FTE. And if you do the calculations, in total, we're going to get about $37,740,000. Of that, they take off the tax portion that we get from local taxes, and in the end, we get about $22 million from the state. Okay, now I'm going to share with you my expenditure assumptions for this budget year. I'm assuming that we have put into place the reduction of $3.1 million of expenses with our budget reduction plan. I'm assuming that salary increases are for settled contracts only. So if we have a contract that's settled, the increases are in here. That the retirement rate will increase from 16.34% to 17.74%. That insurance expense will increase 6.7%, and that's a good figure. I've spoken with Gallagher Bassett and within the last week. That utility expenses will increase between 5 and 15% depending on the utility. For example, phones, things of that nature, maybe 5%. Utilities like gas and electric we're going to expect maybe 15% and hope that with our new energy conservation and hope the pricing doesn't increase too much. But we want to build some figures in there for that. And that property and liability insurance will increase 5%. And here is the total for our budgeted expenditures, $42,998,059. And I'm going to break that down as well. 83.84% covers salaries and benefits. That includes all salaries, taxes, retirement, and benefits, insurance, workers' comp, things of that nature. Purchase services, 4.7%. 4.76% covers legal, audit, computer services, repairs and maintenance to our building. We spend about 5% on utilities, about 3%, a little over 3% on teaching, office, and custodial supplies. A very small percentage in capital outlay, and that really only covers our licensing for software. Miscellaneous, a small percentage, 1.63%. Of that includes interest that we're going to be paying on the loans that we have to take to eliminate any cash flow problems that we're going to have. And then transfers out equals to about 1.23%. And transfers out are things like we transfer from our general fund into our athletic fund to cover any revenue that we don't meet. This is just a side. A lot of people ask questions about how many dollars we spend per student. And right now, we're at $9,999, so I rounded it up. But remember, this includes all of our grant expenditures, which is about $3.7 million. But if someone were to ask, overall, we spend about $10,000 per kid. Includes special education, everything. Okay, so here's the bottom line. I'm expecting to end this year, 05-06, with $11,515 in our fund balance. We've talked about the revenue and expenditures that I expect, almost equivalent to about almost $43 million apiece, meaning that our surplus deficit for next year would be $9,530, leaving us with a fund balance at the end of this year, going into this year, 06-07, so June 30th, 2007, of $1,985.
I don't want to hear this.
It's very small for the audience to read, so I apologize for that. But there are printouts at the front if you want to see it closer. This basically just gives you a little bit more detail on the revenue. The top portion under revenue doesn't tell you that much more than I've already explained. But the next lines go down, and you can see basic programs, added needs, adult ed, goes all the way down. It gives categories, maintenance and operations. And if you look at those, you can see that in the majority of cases, our expenditures have hit every single line item, which means that as part of our plan, we have tried to hit basically every area that we could, that we haven't focused on one area. Here are some things to consider as we move forward. The state aid could be reduced at any time. We've seen it happen before. Enrollment increases or reductions could affect our bottom line. Gas prices are still unstable. The Wayne County Treasurer appeals affects our local tax. Just for example, the $1 million invoice I got, those are things that I was not prepared for. Several contracts are under negotiation this coming year, and that I'll keep you updated as information becomes available. And what I mean by that is when we get our counts in for September, I will probably be coming back to you to share more information as it changes the finances of the district. Now I'm going to move on to our other funds, debt service. Currently the district levies 7 mills to fund our debt service. And we use those to pay our bond redemption and interest payments on all of our debt service funds. And the next slide gives you basic information. The beginning of the year, we will start off with $1.7 million. We're going to get in about $7.6 million in revenue from taxes. We're going to spend about $8 million paying off our debt and interest for the year. We'll cut into our fund balance of about $443,000. Leaving us $1.3 million to move forward. And that just as well gives you detail. Now we'll talk briefly about school service funds. Those funds are food services, athletics, and community services. And when I say community services, I'm talking about our latchkey and our child care program. This budget was built on the assumption that we would renew our contract with Chartwells at $1.20 per meal. That as part of the reduction plan, our athletics program would be, the expenditures would be reduced by $50,000, and that we would reorganize the management of our child care center to overcome our history of deficits. The bottom line for food services, as you can, I'm not going to go through the detail because I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But what this is telling you is that we're making about $73,000 a year. I expect to make $73,000 next year, but we'll still end up with a fund balance in that program. Once again, the details. Now we get into athletics. In athletics, we never carry a fund balance because we're always, typically, districts always transfer money in to cover any additional expenses that we can't cover with our revenue that we collect with gate receipts. And what this is saying to you is that we bring in about $42,000 of gate receipts. We spend about $569,000, and we have to transfer in from the general fund $527,292 to keep that program up and running. Once again, the detail on the athletics budget. And lastly, community services. What this tells you is we expect to have revenue match expenditures, leaving no transfer in from the general fund. The positive side of that, if we get the management where we need it to be and tuition collected as we want, we could probably earn money in that area, but I didn't want to project anything out because of the history of the deficits in that particular program. Once again, the detail. And then I want to thank you, and any questions or comments that you have for me.
Madam President, I have a comment. I just wanted to thank Sherry. This is so board member friendly. I mean, I really understand and I kind of can see where we're going, and you broke it down very well. I appreciate all the hard work. I can see the hard work you put into it, so it was very much appreciated. But yeah, it's all too clear to me now. So thanks.
You're welcome. Any other comments?
Madam Chair. I like the comment that you're going to keep us informed as we go along, which means as we go along, we should be able to make adjustments. I guess my other comment is that we should probably start looking right now at building budgets as far as supplies, things of that nature that maybe still will have to be cut during this year.
That's one of my goals, and with our new superintendent, we'll sit down and look at areas that maybe haven't been touched upon, areas that I'm still learning about being your new business manager, and we will keep looking at all the line items of the budget.
The hard thing you're going to run into in that area is textbooks. We have not spent much money on textbooks over the last 3 or 4 years, and sooner or later, you're going to have to pay the piper. So just be aware that that's going to be out there, whether it's 06 or 07 or 07, 08. There are some pretty considerable numbers that are going to pop up in your face at some point, and you've got to deal with it when it happens.
We may have to sell suckers on the street corner.
So historically, do we know what we pay for textbooks? I mean, I know it probably depends on the wear and tear, and usually do we usually buy a big purchase at one time, or is it
We
progression?
might buy 1 or 2 subjects one year and a couple of subjects another year, but it's easy to spend $500,000 in a year.
I'm not sure that I've seen it. I think we bought some books
It's
when I
been a while.
first got on the board, but not since then. I can't remember.
It's been a while since we've
bought
done any
books in a
really-
long, long time.
The thing that happens is that if you do a math adoption and it's all the way from 1st through 6th or 8th grade, you're talking a whole lot of money on a deal like that, so, or an English series or whatever it might be. When you're doing the high school and you're only buying 100 books here and 100 there or 200, that's different. When you start buying a couple thousand, that's when it really adds up. But you also get some savings because there's savings in scale as well. Just something to be aware of. It's not to be alarmed. Good job. Very good.
Thank
Excellent,
you.
Sherry.
Great job.
It's really good.
Going to regular section.
Okay, can we get a motion to reconvene into regular session?
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Support. Motion by Mrs. Lanassi, supported by Mrs. Roscoe. Are there any questions?
Oops, wait a minute.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And
We're going to need a,
do your minutes.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of our previous meetings.
Support. Motion by Mrs. Buckley, supported by Mrs. Roscoe. Are Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the next item on the agenda, Joel, is the report of the superintendent.
There are no personal actions tonight, so I'll go back to Sherry for the bills for payment. Sherry?
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Members of the board, I'm asking the board to approve the bills submitted for payment from the period June 14th through June 22nd, 2006, in the amount of $971,474.70.
I'll make the motion that we approve it.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Lanasi, supported by Mrs. Buckley. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Go right ahead.
The next item is what we just talked about, budget adoption for our revised budget of 0506 and our original proposed budget for the 2006-2007 year. This was brought in front of the Finance Committee, and they are recommending that it be adopted by the board.
And I would suggest two motions on this, because you're dealing with 2 items.
Two motions.
Yes, you've got an 0506 update, and then the 0607 adoption.
Oh, we do, okay. Can I get a motion for the revision of the 2005-2006 budgets?
I make that motion, Madam Chair, that we adopt the revised 2005-2006 budget.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Buckley, supported by Mrs. Lanasi. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. The next item would be the 2006-2007 budget. A recommendation would be needed.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Lanasi, supported by Mrs. Roscoe. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Keep going.
Okay, the next
Sure,
item
sure.
is the renewal of Chartwell's Dining Services contract for 2006-2007.
Can I get a motion to renew the Chartwell's Dining Service?
I'll make the motion to renew the food service contract with Chartwell's.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Mankiewicz, supported by Mrs. Buckley. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Lanasi.
Is that price increased, Sherry?
Yes,
From-
it increased from $1.13 to $1.20. And there are other stipulations that we worked out with Chartwell's in this contract, many of them in our favor, one of them including that any disposed food will be able to be provided to our cafeteria staff, children, Boys and Girls Club, whatever we decide, so that we ensure that it's not thrown away and wasted.
Okay.
Okay, Madam Chair, I did have some questions, but I talked to a member of the Finance Committee, so I'm set.
Okay. Okay, that was motion by Ms. Buckley, supported by Mr. Mankiewicz.
No,
No, Ken and Cheryl.
I made
That
a
was-
motion, Cheryl supported.
Oh, okay, I had them backwards.
Madam Chair, I do have one other question. I just
Yes.
want everyone, so there's no increase to the students?
There's no increase in lunch prices to the student for 2006-2007.
Thank you, I just wanted to make sure we were clear.
We're not, yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to oppose on this Chartwell's issue, so that would be 4-1.
Still passes.
Next item would be the state aid note resolution.
I'm proposing that the Board of Education accept the Finance Committee's recommendation to borrow $4.5 million for the state aid note program.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we accept the Finance Committee's recommendation to borrow $4.5 million.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Buckley, supported by Mrs. Lanasi. Are there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'll make a comment or two about it.
Please do.
What I wanted to mention is that this $4.5 million includes paying off a loan we took not even a month ago for $2.75 million to get us through August. With that as well, the $1 million invoice that we're going to be owing back to the county, it includes those figures.
Oh, my.
Oh, my is
Okay.
right.
Oh, my.
Let's try this again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda would be communications and expressions from the public. I don't have any in front of me, actually, unless somebody would like to address the board. Okay, Joel, items of interest from the superintendent.
It's Steve Ball.
These are self-explanatory, and you'll be getting more year-end reports from the other elementary schools. We don't need an executive session tonight. I would like to just make one very brief comment. Carl Weiss becomes your superintendent in just a few days, and I'm
Yeah.
very happy to see him coming to join this board. This is a
We
very
got him chained to the chair.
Well, this is a sweet, sour time for me. I mean, it's very sweet, and I've got way too many years in my profession, but I've enjoyed every second of it. And my heartfelt thanks goes out to you folks and the Board of Education and folks who have served on previous boards that I've worked with going back 35 years. And I appreciate very much the kind of support and the kind of successes that we've had. And I leave with a little bit of unhappiness because you're all very dear to me, and what we've done together has been just spectacular as far as I'm concerned. And I'd like to wish Carl and the Board of Education and the employees of the Romulus Community Schools and the entire community the very best. And for myself and my wife and my family, we've really had a great, great run here. And it's been 35 years. I remember walking in here in 1971, and gosh, we've gone through some very interesting stuff, and I've just appreciated all of the employees and union folks we've worked with. And at one point, I was even one of the folks who started a union here. We started the RASA union, Dr. Lassane and I, many, many years ago. And I know some of the union people probably find that hard to believe because I've been on the other side of the fence so long, but I'm just so very happy and so very sad. And God bless the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Madam Chairman, are we at questions and concern of board members?
We're getting to that
Okay.
point right now.
Oh, okay. I lost track here.
Okay, questions and concerns of board members, Mrs. Lanesi.
Okay, I have two things. First of all, the year-end reports, I enjoyed both of them, and I do like reading them. They're very interesting because I don't get around to the schools as much as I used to. The other thing I wanted to make a comment on is I was very impressed with the way the schools have been looking. Our maintenance department's been doing a real good job, and I don't know if they just did it for us because of the moving up ceremonies or what. And I did attend two of the moving up ceremonies, the one at Corey and the one at Barth. The one at Barth was very touching because of they had a little thing for Nikki.
Wick.
The McAnally family had made a bench and put it out in front of the school. If no one has seen it, it's so nice, and it has her name burned in it, Nikki, and then it's got a little heart. I think it said her birth date and the year she was born and the year she passed away. It was very nice, and they donated that in her favor. They got, and her mother got her certificate. It was very touching. And fast, too, by the way, I might add. 45 minutes.
Thank you, Betty. Is there any other questions and concerns of board members?
Madam Chairman, kind of piggybacking off Ms. Lanasi on these year-end reports, the only problem I had with it is it was like a curriculum guide. As I was reading through one of them, it's spelling out what, like in phys ed, what each second grader should be learning. I don't know if we need that kind of detail in the year-end report. To me, it's more, I would be looking for how many students we started with, how many we finished with, maybe discipline problems, if we did well on the meet, those types of things. But I just felt in reading some of it that it got a little bit carried away. To me, I could pick that up out of a curriculum guide.
Something to consider for next year, Carl. Okay, if nobody else has anything, I actually have a few things tonight that I need to discuss. In front of you, I've placed a manila folder that I would like each of you to take a look at and review, to give you a brief summary of what's in the folder. What I hope to get out of this is I've spoke with quite a few people who have some concerns about a situation at the middle school where we may be getting rid of a position that is very much needed. And I would request that we take a look at it during the summer, maybe get together with Carl and see if there's anything that we can do to shift some things around a little bit if we have the flexibility, Carl, to work with you on that during the summer. If anybody has any questions about it, you can give me a call and I'll explain more to you in detail. And the next issue that I have too is I've personally been getting a lot of phone calls about the school nurse. I mean, my phone rings almost every day regarding what are we going to do in situations where we have students who are insulin dependent, who's going to be handling this. And I know that, you know, we have to rely on the parents, but a lot of parents are very concerned about the health of their child and who's going to be doing this. And I've actually had a secretary from one of the elementaries call me, and I've asked her to put something in writing to all of us who basically, she said, April, if I have one of these students that come to me, I can't give an insulin shot. You know, and there's some people out there that just cannot do it. If someone came up to me and said, you know, Mrs. Ferrer, I'd like you to give this student a shot, I don't know if, I couldn't do it personally. So we need to really take a look at that and really determine, do we want secretaries dispersing insulin shots? I mean, just something to...
It doesn't necessarily have to be secretary. There are other things that can be done, and, you know, you can look at a further investigation of that.
Sure, of getting a qualified person, maybe, to do it. So if there's anything we can do about that, those are two things on my agenda for the summer to really take a look at. And that being said, I was in attendance at the Barth moving up ceremony, which was very good. One of the things I was very pleased with was a lot of our students at Barth received recognition from as high as the President of the United States, and received letters and just very, very outstanding performances from some of our kids that are moving up to the middle school next year. So that's all I have. If there's any other questions or concerns of board members regarding anything else?
I just have one comment. I just want to say, Joel, on behalf of myself and I guess the board, we appreciate all your hard work and dedication. I think we met when I was in high school. So we just, I think we've accomplished a lot of good things together, and you will be missed. So just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Ready to adjourn?
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Oh,
Are we going
hold
into
on,
executive
one second.
session?
Joel, on behalf of Local 64, we wish you the best.
Thank you very much. You folks have been very dear to me, and we've worked closely for a long time, and love you all.
Okay. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yeah.
Are we going into executive session?
I thought we did away with the executive
Did we?
session. I thought we did.
Betty, you made the motion?
Yes, I did.
Motion by Mrs. Lanasi, supported by
I'll support it.
Mrs. Roscoe. Are there any questions? Roll call?
No.
All in
just
favor?
have regular
In
vote.
favor.
Aye.
Favor.
Opposed?
Aye.
6:52.
Meeting adjourned.